So the first thing is to approve the minutes from October 17th, which was the last. Which people had a chance when they sent them out 2 days ago. Today.
Yes, and that was a meeting that not a lot of people attended.
Not from Rockport. Camden was full. Yeah, it was just Margot. Yeah, it was Richard, Tom, Anita, me, Lindsay, and Gary.
Slamming the door here. There's something on there.
So are there any edits to the minutes of October 17th?
Forever hold your peace.
Right in between you two.
There are no minutes. I mean, they're pretty comprehensive. Do we have a motion to accept?
Is that what you want to be said? I guess down the chair over there.
Who's taking minutes now?
Good question.
Okay.
Anita?
Thank you.
Thanks, Anita.
Grateful to accept the minutes.
We have a motion to accept the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second,
I
second.
apologize, I can't remember your name.
Oh, Michael.
But Michael, I don't think is here. Are you voting?
no, Michael's not. Michael,
Michael, what's your last name?
Thompson.
Rockport.
Respect that. It's the liaison.
So maybe Kristen makes the motion. Wait, no, she wasn't at the meeting. She can-
here. If I can do that.
but he-
I make a motion to pass them
Do we have a,
as written.
Tom, thank you. Is there any discussion? Hey, minutes are, let's vote on whether to accept the minutes. All in favor? It's here. All opposed? They pass. We're good.
Do I have to write who seconded?
No, you don't have to do any of that stuff. Dave St. Laurent just texted in. He's not gonna make it asking whether he could zoom in.
Can he zoom in? Yeah, he can zoom in. What's his email?
We'd really kind of like him to be here, therefore he could, zooming in is better than nothing.
Do we want to move that next item lower
Yeah,
in the agenda?
I think he's still mobile. I'm not sure.
What's that?
Why don't we
I mean, he may be driving.
jump to number 3, which is
BST Laurent.
discussion on the Camden.
I'll send it to you. How
Connector.
about that? Is that?
Then we can come back if we can, and Jeff can work on the Dave connection. And Mike, I'm assuming is not able to make it tonight, like Young. So Camden Hills High School connector, that is, who can update on that, Orion or Linda?
No, was that on the agenda as the Route 90? That you would ask to put that on the agenda. Is that the Route 90 that you're talking about, or is that a connector underneath
I'm having trouble multitasking here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to negotiate with Dave just for a second.
Yeah.
Just a second. Let me finish with Dave.
Okay. I think that's not Route 90.
Okay.
That came from.
Yeah.
We're gonna jump
Okay.
down to item number 4 then.
Here I am. I'm back.
So it was on the Camden Hills High School connector.
Right. Do you want me to talk about that a little bit? So basically the concept is since we're a joint committee here, what do you all think is the political will to look at some sort of a connection between Camden and the high school going through the power lines that start in Camden and end at the high school? That's a right of way that goes all the way, and it was addressed 15, 20 years ago, I think, once before. Wondering, there's some energy in and support in Camden, and so it's something to think about on the Rockport side, whether that's with the other projects you've got going, specifically on Route 90 and that study, and whether this creates noise.
Interest or new willingness on the part of CMP.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like already a yes from CMG.
Even
That's
to
just
go
their-
through,
That's just their policy. It was interesting to talk to them. They even have a little, card that they hand out. I went, back when they were trying to pass their thing, they invited a bunch of elected officials to come to their headquarters and ask questions, and, they had all these handouts, and one of them was like, what can you do under our power lines? And it was like, hunting is okay, walking is okay, riding your ATV is okay. It's not okay to build a structure. I was like, oh, are these your only rules? And, so we've since clarified that, yeah, unless there's some kind of special situation, their general policy is that those are free for use.
Yeah, so in talking with CMP as well, I agree with that. They're fine with it. It's more of depending on how the easement's written over that land, either they have the right to grant it or it's the landowner's approval. They said with this strip, it's complicated, that some of those areas are not theirs, their right to give. So could we get approval from everybody within that land? Maybe, possibly.
so that's sort of
Did
like,
they say that specifically some of those areas aren't theirs to give?
Yeah, because I asked, I forget his name, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but it was
Oh,
a
is it-
conversation I was having with CMP, and they said that area, stretch of it, they don't have any right over it other than their easement component, and then you'd have to get the right,
so that's access for maintenance to the wires and maybe more, maybe not.
yes.
Yeah.
But in terms of bikeability,
Yeah.
walkability, any of that kind of access, they don't care. So,
Is it safe to be hanging out underneath? all this?
yes.
It is.
I mean, and you can actually see that a lot of people are already doing it. I flew my drone over there and there's a beaten path throughout a lot of it.
all the way over to Rockport and Mystic in that area.
Haven't done every single part of it.
Power lines up near me or, you know, the George's Island Trail has to cross it, you know, to get from Mount Pleasant and Spruce Mountain over to, you know, Route 17.
Mhm.
So it seems like it could be a possibility. The only thing I could see it running into real resistance would be once you come over to Main Street in Rockport, and then it's pretty dense housing in that area. And people's backyards are right, or people's houses are right
Yeah,
close
I've
to
heard
it.
from a
But you,
couple of them
if
over the
you,
years.
what's that?
Yeah, I've heard from one lady was like, oh yeah, well, they were trying to do that and you know, it was gonna go right through our backyard and
But if you did your drone, I mean, legally, if you can, I don't know. But
I can, yeah.
to get us a visual to see how it goes. And because then it would go, I think, over to Stuart Smith's land on Cross Street and 90. I believe that's where it would come out.
There are
And then
some
you could,
really ones, and then there's a little bit of wetland. There's the Public Works garage part of it too. I think in some ways it might just be fun to get a group of people sometimes and just try to walk some of it too. I'd love to, I mean, I can totally do the drone, but, in talking to a lot of the kids at the high school and different people, they're like, oh, did you know about this trail here and this trail here? And actually people are already going here and here and here. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think it's just about protecting, if you can establish what Bill Kelly told us recently, or has over the years, is if you can establish that there has been continuous use in certain places too, you can protect the public right through prescriptive easements and, I don't know that, you know, anybody's at the point where in Camden, we're gonna throw the full weight of every town department behind trying to get this trail to the high school like they did before, where it was gonna be, you know, I think Jeff, really well developed. It was like a real multi-use trail. But there does seem to be in the community a lot of, you know, interest in just making a little progress. And Doc,
Can I interrupt just for a sec?
Let Andrew.
Just a sec, just for interrupt. Dave's here now. And what I'd like to do is, this is a longer conversation. And in deference to Dave and his time, he's had a long day. Dave, you hear me? I'm talking.
Dave might have something to add to this conversation too.
Yeah, but he can stick around if he wants, but I'd rather he go back to that agenda item, and then Dave, if you want to stick around, you can, or you can drop out.
Can you hear me right now?
Yes. A little soft. Can you
No.
fix that, Ryan? We're turning up the sound here a little bit.
Try again, say something.
So can you hear me?
Better.
Perfect.
That's much.
So one of the things that I was wondering about that Orion was talking about is there a map or a drawing of the areas that are in of dispute?
I could create that.
Yes,
So
yes.
I mean, I think the first place to start is with that, right? Because maybe it's a non-issue, maybe it is an issue. It'd be good to know, what the obstacles are before we start trying to put too much effort into it.
Right.
Because if it's all people that we're familiar with and we can talk to them or somehow interact with them, we might not even have an issue here, and it could be something easy to, take care of. And if it isn't, then we have to think about something different. I think that's the first place to start with that. So if there's such a thing of when I talked with CMP about this, that never came up. But then again, I didn't get too in detailed with him about it. Are you talking about Patrick Voigt?
Maybe. I'm gonna try and find his name real quick. Okay.
Questions
Okay,
also, so you could have all the land permissions. Do you have the ability, would we have the ability to build a trail? And what kind of trail would it be? Like around the mountain trail? Would it be,
Well,
some,
I mean, what I was thinking is, just, a wood chip type of trail to start, just to get us through there. And if there's any wetland areas, just logs and boards, that's what we're looking at initially, just to kind of get the use in play. And then once the use is in play, then you can improve it from there. Instead of putting a lot of money and capital into something, let's just punch a hole through there and see if we can make it work. Not try to get into too much, paving and, you know, stone dust and all these other things. Let's just try to keep it something simple. And, maybe it's not gonna deviate too much outside of what's allowed.
Yeah.
Kind of what I'm thinking.
The name that I have is Patrick Otto. You know Patrick Otto?
No.
So,
That's the
so
first-
Dave, does this idea, it would never be a pathway in the sense of what we talk about as a pathway, which is what we had in the master plans to go along Route 1 and then Route 90, right?
Mhm.
To be a real connector for all different kinds of traffic. This in a way is like an alternative trail, cross-country trail for those who are more able to ride bikes or walk or something, but somebody who can't walk all that well, this would be like
wouldn't be
trail.
It wouldn't be an ADA compliant trail, but these things have to be kind of, done in incremental steps sometimes. And I think that, if you can just get a simple walking trail through there with wood chips and, logs and boards, let's say, to get over kind of the wetland areas, then you establish use. And once you've established use, and like I think Allison was saying, you get, some kind of prescriptive rights moving through there. Might be a little more complicated because it's over, an easement that's owned by or has that CMP is in charge of. But I think that that's better. I mean, the kids that are going to be going through there are going to be walking, or they're going to be taking mountain bikes and stuff right initially. And we want to kind of establish the trail, I think, just to kind of see if it works and see if it's used. And then we can set aside money to improve it if that's something we can do. I think that's the best option here, instead of just trying to say, all right, we're gonna go full in on a paved 6 foot wide, trail from John Street to Route 90. I mean, that's a big undertaking and a lot of cost, and it probably can be done, but let's start with something small first and just see if we can do it. That's just how I'm looking at it.
The approximate distance.
As I recall, there's one really steep section there.
There is.
Yeah, and I don't know if you could put switchbacks or. Yes, it's.
There are some.
Doesn't it cross the river? The.
Yes, it goes across, that's true. But, but there are trails down in that area already, but
Great idea.
I mean, people are using that Ashwood, the trail from Ashwood over to the high school.
Right.
There's all kinds of stuff like that that is happening right now, almost like informally, that, would be good to not lose too, because there are a lot of trails that have been lost over the years, because since they couldn't be made into this perfect pathway, people forgot about them, like the Jacobs Quarry Trail or the, and I think that just kind of a placeholder trail that's formalized in some way can be a really
Right.
beneficial thing. But it's not,
I think,
you can do without having to work really, really hard.
Yeah.
If the town is willing to say, oh yeah, we're gonna say that we have the rights to that, or,
so Dave, does your department then have that, willpower to start investigating that? Is that where it comes from?
well, I mean, Orion's the one who brought up the points of concern. So I think, if he can make contact with that person and point those out to us, I can talk with the contact I have, and see what we can do to, maybe move forward with at least trying to get closer to where we're trying to be. I think if you can establish a walking trail through there initially, just a primitive walking trail through there, that's the first step. Let's just try to get like something that's formalized that we can use, and there's no real major um arguments against it, and then we'll just kind of improve it as it goes, and that's the way you get something like that established. I don't think going full on paving, a path through there 6 feet wide is going to be as easy. I think it needs to be softened a little bit and start off with something a little simpler and then build off of it. I mean, look at what you have at the Riverwalk. You don't really have anything there that's paved or anything. It's just stone dust, and it's not really a paved way or anything. It's a kind of a nature trail in a way. I know that's a goal to maybe make it more than that, but that's not what it is right now. And you're getting closer every time. You're at a point now where after almost a year of trying to get this fence moved, and that's almost happening, and that'll get you closer to the school. And then after you get closer to the school, you'll work around the school, and every year, and as time goes on, it'll get closer to where it needs to be. I think best is the enemy of better in this situation, and trying to get the whole thing done in one fell swoop is not going to be easy. I think it's going to be easier to slowly work on it and make it something simple, and let kids be able to use it with mountain bikes and walking. And then after that, let's build off of it if we can get to that point. And if we can't get to that point, then we haven't wasted a lot of time. If it's a hard no, then we'll know it.
But that comes from working at the Camden end first. Yeah,
I think it comes from addressing the areas that, this is news to me, that Orion brought up about CMP not having actual easement. I'd like to see the documents or whatever that is, and maybe go over that with the attorney. But I think we need to know what the facts are, and then what the areas of concern are, and then we'll address those first. And if those are a hard no, then we're not going to move forward with this. We'll do something different. I think
So
that's the.
going back to my framing of this was there's some energy in Camden to do that. The question is whether there's energy in Rockport to do that, because this would be a two-town effort. It's not Camden doing it first and then Rockport doing it first, because if Rockport's not interested because of the efforts that are going on with Route 90, and that was sort of a master plan that was submitted by, I can't remember the VIP, VPI.
Oh,
guy.
that, yeah, the traffic infrastructure stuff.
Yeah, that was big, and that was great work, and we have no intention of eroding that or sabotaging that by distracting any of that. But the question is whether there's more bandwidth or interest to put some thought into this and then see where it goes. It's not like a complete, we're gonna write a $1 million grant to build something monstrous. It's just to sort of see what the landscape looks like. This is just at a very high level, and I think that's what Dave, that's what you're talking about too.
Yeah, and I really want to know or talk to the person who's saying there's areas of concern and know where those are. Are they in Rockport? Are they in Camden?
Right.
No, CMP isn't saying that they have an area of concern. They're saying that they'll give you the green light, but the issue that you're gonna have is the landowner underneath that might have an issue with it. So he's saying that you'd have to.
Oh,
That.
okay, well, that's different. I mean, I think we need to work through that, and
Yeah.
find out what our options are. I was misunderstanding. I thought that this was some kind of odd situation where CMP only had different rights than they normally have across any other. Okay, so when I talked to Patrick Voigt, there didn't seem to be much of a problem here. It seems like it's more of a political thing. And if that's the case, then I think we just need to move forward with trying to figure out, where we can do this and what our latitude is to be able to do it, and work with CMP what CMP is going to do this. They're going to say, we'll do whatever you want, but we don't want to get into the politics. That's what they're going to say. And then we're going to say, okay, well, we'll deal with the politics. And it's how much of a stomach do we have for the politics? Are we willing to try to work through those? And I think what we do is we identify the landowners of the places that we're moving through, to get this trail through there, and tell them that, we're working with CMP to put a primitive trail through here so kids can walk to school from Camden to Rockport and vice versa, and see where that takes us. And if we find that we're running into, major obstacles, then we'll deal with those as they come up. I think that's the way to do it. So I've got a GIS system. I can identify landowners that are, on that corridor, and I can handle the Camden side of it with help from people on the Pathways Committee. And I think that's where we start. And I think, maybe Rockport can start doing that on their end.
So Dave, Tom had the map opened up, and a lot of the land that we're talking about it goes through Rockport. Like, the trail could start in Camden up by Public Works, right?
Right.
And go
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
through Mary Spring, and Mary Spring might not have a problem, but Rockport, you're coming through and there's multiple landowners who abut it. And then before you even get over to Cross Street and then over to the high school. So it's a lot of dealing, a lot of smaller lots, a lot of smaller parcel holding. And I mean, it's a great idea. I think it's a wonderful idea. I just don't want to get detracted from the emphasis on Route 90 and Route 1, which, having a pathways go along to get everybody, not just kids, but everybody, the little old ladies pulling their carts, or, the people who are in wheelchairs and stuff, to make sure that they all have adequate.
Can I just ask, because maybe I'm naive, so the corridor itself is actually owned by landowners and CMP just runs their lines through it? It's not like the corridor is owned by CMP?
They have an easement.
It's like an easement over, other people's property that allows them to maintain it and run the utility across it. And part of the maintenance is it allows them to have access across it. I have actually a piece of property that has a CMP easement over it, so it's kind of like that. Um,
I didn't realize
but the
that.
thing is, a lot of times, people don't really consider that their property. It depends on who you talk to. You know what I mean? It's a lot of times they think their property comes up to the easement and they don't really count that corridor as part of their property. So I really don't know what people's feelings are in that area. I don't know if it's part of a back lot or is it something that transects the middle of their property. All of those things have merit and bearing on how people feel about that. I mean, ideally, their property just comes up to the corridor and stops, but that's probably not the case with everything. If it transects the middle of their property and then people are walking right behind their house, they'll be more concerned. It's just we need to look at it a little bit more carefully. And I think that we just need to kind of somebody has to look into each parcel and talk to each person. And
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm willing to do that and help do that on the Camden side. If you guys don't want to do it on the Rockport side, then we should just not move forward.
Right, that's
Well,
that's
no, there's
the,
actually
that's the question.
benefit to, so in Camden, the barriers before were Public Works had objections and also Mary Spring. So, I mean, just getting more public, like established public right of way is important. There's a lot of, there are other, I think part of this too is it's, even if it's not the Pathways Committee that does this, there are a lot of other groups working on things in town that want to do things like this. And so sometimes my reaction's been like, oh, if you're interested in that, come to the Pathways Committee. And then people come to the Pathways Committee and they're frustrated because the Pathways Committee is doing something different. And that's fine. But since the Pathways Committee developed this kind of reputation as being like the one that's doing all of this, it's almost like if it doesn't go through the Pathways Committee, it's not happening. And I think there might be a way too of just saying, the Pathways Committee saying, this would be a great thing if it happened, like Main Sport, for instance, they have some trails. They've been talking with, Rockport Historical Society has, land back there. Which connects to Mary Spring, which connects to the Public Works Garage. And so even if that became passable in new places, that would be beneficial. It might not be the highest priority for a town committee to be pulling out all the stops on.
What are you,
But-
what are you suggesting? Are you saying people form a private?
I am suggesting that sometimes
What do
we
you
have
say?
people that are working for the town that, like, the resistance to these things actually comes internally. And so when you have willingness on the part of like a big town property that's 13 acres that says, oh yeah, it would be fine if there's no problem with the public coming through here. Like right now, Midco Solid Waste is saying there's no problem with the public. Sometimes you end up with people that even select board town administration that says there is a problem with the public coming through here. And it's good to seize the opportunity for there to be public. It's kind of like when you
I
say,
can't draw a picture of what you're suggesting. I
Kinda-
can't understand.
Kind of
might be-
like the wastewater department where the prior the prior superintendent didn't want the Riverwalk to go past the treatment plant. Okay, now you have a superintendent that doesn't have a problem with it and is moving the fence over to give you access to get to the school. It's just kind of like that. You have an where right now you're not having any hindrances internally to completing that project or getting it beyond that point. A lot of
You
these
seize the
things,
opportunity when you can.
right, you put down the
Right.
wood chips, even if you can't get the whole path perfect there, you
Right.
say, you say, great, there's somebody that says it's okay for the public to walk through there. You let them take the fence down, you say, thank you, you put the wood chips
and you
out. even if
establish
can't-
use, in increments. Because a lot of everything I do in town and sidewalks is about little pieces at a time. I never get the full thing all at once. This is like a
Right.
chess game. This is a chess game. And right now, we got Route 1, almost all of Route 1 done. We got a small chunk there. We have Pearl Street now completely going all the way to John. We have John being put in place. We're going to connect Simonton. We're going to have a complete, then we're going to do Mechanic. these are all like little chunks that I do a little bit at a time. I don't try and do them all at once because usually I find that every time I've done that, we run into obstacles and they just get shot down because it's too overwhelming for everybody all at once. You just got to
Right.
take what you can get, establish use, get your prescriptive use in place, and then move on from there. And then pick your time if you can't do it then to add to that. This isn't the objective isn't the complete, you know, complete destination all the time. It's getting maybe halfway there. And then if you get halfway there, then, you know, in another 5 years, you know, landowners change, there's an appetite for it, and then you're able to do it. That's really what it's about. You know, we can't just every time think that it's going to be a complete project. You can't look at it that way, I don't
I
think.
think you're singing to the choir here, Dave, because we've done this on other projects
Doesn't
too.
CMP already have a trail through there to some extent? They have to drive there.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I don't know how they get across. the
People
river,
drive four-wheelers, horses.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
drive.
so it's partly there already, so it's just
Exactly.
run with it.
So
Little to little.
my, thought is we create a working group to focus on this. And let's bring John Anders in,
Yes.
who is working, who is like a free agent now. Side Country has hired him specifically for trails work.
He
And
doesn't work for Side Country anymore. He works for Midcoast Trails
that's,
Coalition.
Oh,
that's
McDonald's.
what Side
No,
Country's
no,
created.
Right, but it's a new
Works at
nonprofit.
Baxter Park, he's
Right.
everywhere.
He's
Oh,
everywhere.
cool.
He works
It's a
in
great
Prague.
idea, Margot. I'm all for it because I think as a committee, we can't take on right now, like envisioning. I know the Rockport, I don't feel the Rockport contingent of the Pathways Committee can take on cataloging every landowner
Right.
and going through that entire process when really we are still focusing heavily on Route 90 and hopefully Route 1, you know, to get that. But it can, I think a working group of people who are more into the trails part of it.
Yeah, to be able to offer support without taking the whole, connecting for you guys just to say, oh, the Camden Public Works Director says this would be okay, you can talk to him. Things like that, just to be supportive rather than,
Right. You know, and I mean, like, I can work with Bill on, you know, some thoughts on how to draft a letter to landowners that say, you know, we want to build a nature trail from here to here. You know, that sounds a lot different than saying I want to put a 6 foot wide paved trail for people to, you know, drive bicycles and whatever else through there. I mean, people, it's all in how you word it and how you kind of spell it out sometimes. I don't think you need to. I think that we can take a simple approach to this. There might be some easy ways to address the landowner issue, and maybe there isn't, but you know, it's worth a couple letters to the landowners. It's worth a
Well-
little bit more discussion to CMP and find out what our options are.
What about if the working group also takes on the Lily Pond, that effort to go, that other trail, like it becomes a subset of the pathways? And
So I'm almost, if you pitch that, I don't know how Camden's gonna react, but if you pitch that to the Rockport Select Board saying we should commit a subcommittee, they're gonna look at you and say, what are y'all doing?
That's right.
They're-
This is what we do.
This is kind of y'all's bread and butter here.
I think,
So
I think, and I don't misunderstand. I think Linda's saying a working group in this group.
That's fine, as long as it's not.
It's not another
official
group.
sub-
It's not
No.
it's 4 people
That's
in
not
here.
happening.
It's
Like
4
the
people in
tentacles
here.
that keep
Yeah,
growing.
no.
No, it's 4 people in here that would take that on.
because
But
that's
that's
true.
like John Anders, just because of his experience in pulling landowners in
Mhm.
and cataloging that, like his experience is vast in terms of this specific kind of project.
And it also comes through whoever's building the trails, you know, off of, well, that goes through Camden down, you know, back from the mountain, you know, the bike trail that comes back to Annis Road in Rockport, you know, it comes out there. So it sounds like it's right up that alley of those folks.
The thing is, in many cases, we already have the rights and there's just been an unwillingness to actually enforce that. Like, when the public, there's a record of the public using something for 20 years. That the public gains prescriptive rights. And a lot of the time, that is actually deeded somewhere too, or in a record, but people don't know, some landowner puts up a no trespassing sign, and they're like, oh, too bad. But if that can be documented, and the town is willing to say, hey,
So,
there's a documented trail that's been going through here for 20 years, you can't put that sign up. That's where the town can, like, any individual person is gonna have trouble with that. But if the Pathways Committee can know this trail exists, sometimes the town just sending a letter saying you need to take down that fence at the right time. And it just feels like we actually have willingness to do that.
I
Right
don't
now.
have clarity on what a work group of us versus town people, public works, lawyer would do. It seems to me that the moving forward, the part that needs to move forward, all the parts I'm seeing relate to work that has to be done by the town staff, not by individuals going and knocking on somebody's door and having a discussion, right? I mean,
Walking, some of
if
it's
there were a
just walking. these
subgroup,
paths.
what would that subgroup do that would be acceptable by the town staff?
The first thing you should do is get together and walk it.
Yeah, that's what Jeff told me on this walk the other day, and it was like,
Go walk it back and forth, and if there's no obstacles, start sprinkling wood chips.
start establishing use, like,
Bring a wood chipper with you, pick up some stuff.
No, CFP is doing a drop.
and it's not just those places, it's going through all the places maybe in the Pathways Master Plan and getting out there and I think walking and seeing things. And Jeff and I went on this walk, behind the transfer station on the Y the other day, and I've been nervous for years thinking, oh, is this okay? And this and that. And Jeff remembers when people were running back there all the time, and we went on this walk, and he was like, oh, this, and this, and I think it's important to kind of spread that knowledge of the trails that do exist, because people come to me all the time and they say, Allison, oh, there used to be this trail here, and these people did this. And I'm like, oh, shoot, that was 5 years ago, but we should be out there,
Okay, so
Alright.
you're out there, you take a walk, then what? What can you do that is acceptable to the town
take
staff?
pictures.
I'm serious.
No,
I don't
I'm
see
serious.
any work here. I don't see anything.
We're not going out in the field enough and like,
I think there's a lot of research too, Anita. I think that's what the work group that Margot's suggesting. It's some organizational work and
I'm happy to be a member of that work group, and I see it as sort of framing out the scope of what this project looks like and sort of the steps, sort of a process thing says.
Right,
do this,
yeah, and
do
we set up
Steve?
like goals and
Yeah.
objectives and
Right, and then we
people have-
cycle back and check in with Dave and check in with Orion or,
Any barriers, you will go work on.
right, and then these are the barriers, are they unsurmountable, are they not? Do we want to move further or not? It's a slow process, this is not, by the way. Anybody else want to play with me?
Yeah, just looking at this and somebody said that Mary Spring isn't on board with this.
But
I
we don't know that, we don't know that,
That might have
Okay,
been
well,
20.
we don't know that,
That's true.
I read it in the paper from 20 years ago.
But,
yeah.
but Mary Spring owns basically all of the property from where the town property ends down to the river is all Mary Spring.
That's right.
Right.
It goes all the way to the golf course.
but does this work group communicate with John Anders, which I think is a great idea, also the people who are.
Who's John Anders?
He used to be on this Pathways Committee years ago. He's into building bike paths and with
He builds trails.
and trails and stuff, yeah. And he knows the area very well, but also that this subcommittee would sort of be a liaison to whatever projects they have going. So there's greater communication, right? Because those guys are building trails all the time that are intersecting with what makes sense with what you guys are talking about.
To get through these.
I think some of this is just an awareness thing. It doesn't need to be a clear, this subgroup does this
Yeah,
and this.
yeah.
There's not enough getting out there and talking to people. When Jeff and I were out there the other day, we saw
That's right,
other
right. Don't
other
digress.
people, no, I'm serious, other people, this is in terms of what can actually be helpful. Other people that are using these trails, we're like, oh, you use this trail all the time? Is it important to you? Oh, yeah, let me tell you about this. It's
Yeah.
a way to gather community input. People don't want to come to this kind of thing. People want to see you out on the trails and talk about, where they go and what's important.
We need a couple, one or two people from Rockport
What do you mean?
to work with me a little bit.
To go out walking? What's the group gonna do?
For the work.
We're gonna frame it out.
So,
We're just gonna frame out the process and sort of get a better idea, map it, see who the landowners are, get some
Yeah.
pictures, go walking out there and come back and say, hey, this is where we think it's easy, this is where we think it's hard, do we still want to go forward?
John
That's
lives
it.
in Rockport.
Yeah, I think, so, yeah.
He lives in Rockport.
I mean, I used to live in Rockport, but I don't know, he might be in Rockland now.
It doesn't even matter, really.
I'm
It's
working
people
with John on
using the
something
trails.
else anyway. And I'm working with John already. Okay,
Okay,
Jeff,
so
I'll,
I'm
Jeff, I'll work with you. I'm gonna work with you on this and I think we
I'll
can
get back.
frame something up pretty quick.
yeah, I'll get back to you
All
on,
right.
So the only disclaimer I'm gonna put, if you wanna walk, but, you don't have like a letter from either town saying, we want you to do this on our bequest. So if you go out, don't go saying.
Oh,
no, we're not
Rockport
saying,
Camden
we're not,
Pathways Committee is
not
okay
saying
to
that, we're
walk.
ducking and weaving,
Yeah,
and
that
hiding
is a lot
behind
of damage
bushes.
sometimes, actually.
No,
Yeah.
we are not authorized to do any, but anyway,
Intel, just go get some intel.
just intel,
Seeing where people are walking.
Picnic.
that's it. All right,
That's a fair point, yeah.
Dave, is there any other public works budget issues you want to share with us?
for next
Budget-
year,
Budget issues?
not budget
Um,
issues, what are your projects that you're thinking of
okay.
in the budget for next year?
So here's where we're at. We are planned for going out to bid on John Street for sewer and sidewalk. Jeff's done some great work on the trail going to the Conway Road. That's scheduled to go out to bid around 10/30/2026. Just so that's the bid time frame. The Molyneux Mountainside sewer installation, which is going to be going from Mountainside Park, crossing 52 down Molyneux Road, up to Riverside Drive. That's scheduled for going out to bid maybe in the next month or two. I think maybe that might be worth looking at that as, maybe widening the shoulder and maybe making at least like a walking path or, a bike lane per se, while we make those improvements.
On Molyneux, Dave?
Molyneux, yep.
On Molyneux, but not messing with 52.
Not messing with 52, just Molyneux from Riverside.
Okay,
Cause they're gonna be putting the sewer in, right? Sewer line.
We're gonna
Yeah.
be putting some sewer in, so there could be an opportunity there to widen the shoulder, okay? Park Street, we're gonna be doing that, probably bidding out that in March timeframe and improving the sidewalk and eliminating the poles out of the sidewalk there from Route 1 to Lime Rock, or, yeah, Union rather, excuse me, Union.
Yay!
So then we're going over to Gould and we're gonna take, we're gonna improve all of the stormwater on Gould Street. We're gonna redo the whole road. Sewer's done, water's done, so we don't have to do either one of those. But we're probably gonna put some type of traffic calming device at the intersection, maybe a speed table. We haven't really fully decided yet. That's still in design, but that is gonna be an internal project with Public Works. We're gonna do that ourselves. And that's gonna take it all the way up to 52. And then what the
sidewalk?
goal, yes, the sidewalk's gonna go all the way to 52. And then what the goal is to get an MPI in probably the 27, 28 timeframe and possibly do some sewer work on Mountain Street, and take the sidewalk all the way to Gould. And then that'll create a new sidewalk going all the way up, possibly, we already have room for a bike lane there. Take it all the way up to Gould, which would then take it down to Washington, which we already have the new sidewalk. So again, there's the loop. Rosslyn Avenue Bridge removal
Before-
somewhere in the
Dave,
next couple,
Before
excuse
you
me?
go on, before you go on to Rawson, just real quick on Gould, is there any chance to do something about that catch basin on the mountainside of Mountains 52, right? One, I think it's one, like 4 houses up from Gould Street,
Probably
right?
not. State Road, that's gonna be part of the MPI. We can't,
What's,
Right
Huh?
across from the cemetery. right
Yeah.
where-
That's the
beginning
one
of
that
the-
people,
we're stop, the project's stopping at Mountain Street.
okay, wait,
That's not
Okay.
that's not our thing. We're gonna get the state to pay for that.
all right,
Um, so then
right.
we're gonna go over to, then we got Rawson Avenue Bridge that we're gonna be removing probably around April, March, April, with an installation of probably June. Pearl Street, that's done. Public Landing to the island, done. Then we got the Lime Rock Street. So these are the projects that are under evaluation right now, and we're using project priority sequencing and project completion matrix. These projects I'm going to list off are under evaluation for the following categories: sewer, stormwater, multimodal, water, road surface, and traffic calming. And then I think we have um, trees and, let me see here. Um, well, traffic calming, and I can't move my my Zoom link thing. It's in my, right in the way of the next item. But anyway,
Anyway, the matrix.
those categories are all being evaluated on a metrics of 1 through 5. So, the lower sequencing would mean it's in better shape. The higher sequencing or number would mean it's in worse shape. So the driver of all these projects is the sewer because of the bond. And right now we have Lime Rock done. We have Union. We're working on Mountain. We have Mechanic, and then we're working on Washington. So once those are done, we just used AI to do a complete inventory of all the roads. So we put in the ranking of the roads along with the sewer, and then evaluate the stormwater. And then once we, put everything into this matrix, we do a data sort. It tells us which ones rank highest in priority. And then
Yeah,
those are the next big projects. It'll probably happen in 27, 28 timeframe. I'm thinking that based on the sewer piece and the sidewalk piece and the road condition piece, the Mechanic is gonna rank probably the highest on these. At which point, we're gonna do a complete rebuild, hopefully, narrow that up, put some bike lanes in, do some traffic calming, replace the sewer, sidewalk. It'll be probably a 2-year project because we're gonna replace the force main, um, heading up to the treatment plant. So the project will probably encompass, and this is rough estimates. It'll probably
yeah,
it'll probably go from Route 1 to Knowlton, and then next year it'll be from Knowlton all the way up to Simonton, or up to the very end. And then we'll tie in Simonton to it, and then John will be done, and then we'll have continuity there with sidewalk and bike, shoulders for bike lanes. So
clarification,
that's,
Dave, when you say they're done, it means that you're working on putting them into this matrix that will then
Yeah.
prioritize them. So you're just working on creating the data that goes into the matrix, and then it'll be all
It'll be
sorted for you.
It'll be so right now, funding really isn't an issue here. It's a matter of prioritization. And as we prioritize, those will bake out the next few projects that are going to come out of this. But all of these roads that I've identified are on the list. It's just a matter of which ones are we going to hit first. And the only fair way to do it is to rank it based on their needs. So that's,
Dave,
yeah.
when you say funding is not an issue, does that mean you already have funding?
Well,
it-
a we've got the bond for much of this to begin with. And then what the goal is to get as many matching grants as we can. So we already know Lime Rock Street. We've got a grant for that. Union Street, I talked to, Dave Allen, and he's really interested in, paying for probably half, if not more, of Union and Mountain. Okay. So that means the town will only have to contribute probably a small half of the part of that through the MPI. Mechanic Street will be probably the biggest cost for us because it's a town road, has the force main in it, probably needs a lot more work than most of them. And then Washington, we've already got the sidewalk there. That'll be more of a
Yeah.
sewer project and possibly widening of shoulders or something. So there's minimal cost associated with that. So I think these are all doable with what we have in the bond, but we'll see. But
But just,
I'll get pretty far along with it.
just to back up, all of these streets have existing sidewalks at this point? Or are there any new sidewalks you're putting in?
Cool.
John Street doesn't have a sidewalk,
And you're rebuilding Union Street sidewalk?
and Union Street would be completely rebuilt. Yep.
And then in terms of painting the roads for bicycle, you're gonna do that on some of the,
Well, what you do is when you've identified, once we prioritize all the roads conditions based on, matching funds, shade tree, traffic calming, road surface, water, multimodal, stormwater, and sewer. We'll lay it out, and then we always look at, every time I do a road, I look at how much of the complete street aspect can I fit into this road. Some situations you just can't do it. So, what you do is you do as much as you can, and then you do sharrows, or you do some of these things that help with it. But we won't know that until we get everything laid out.
But the driver, can you explain a little bit about the sewer part?
So
Because
because
these are all places where they've identified like major infiltration, and
Right,
so
so
that
the
has to be the driver of what.
the driver
Doing.
is a sewer line replacement because of I, and that's our main objective, is to eliminate that because of various reasons. But once we've done that and identified those deficient areas in the sewer line, those are the things we're going to replace first. But after we do that, everything on top, we're going to try to get as close to a complete street as possible. That's what kind of the objective
That's so great
is.
to hear, Dave. So hey, is Rockport doing any investigation into deficient sewer lines?
No, I
Oh,
think they got a pretty tight system. They're not looking at that right now, I don't think.
they're not as bad as us.
Okay.
They have a newer system. I mean, ours is much older, theirs is much newer.
so all the pedestrian bicycle improvements in Camden right now are tied in with the sewer upgrades. Is that how it's happening in the next couple of years?
Except for, I guess, Gold Street, maybe that's stormwater, but
Gould Street's kind of a separate issue. We're really trying to take care of a bad road condition with really poor stormwater condition and with high traffic calming needs. So we're handling that one internally through the department. We're not putting that out to bid or anything. John Street's going to be completely out to bid. That's kind of the difference between the two. But I guess I'll say it again. Every time so the driver is a sewer, and once we've identified problems with the sewer, we're going to bid that sewer work out. And as part of the completion of the sewer work is everything above it. So,
say the
once
part about
we,
how the lowest thing in the road.
Yeah. No,
what's
that's,
that?
yeah.
It was helpful to me one time when you explained that the sewer pipes are the
Oh.
lowest thing down in the road.
Right.
so-
So it's the most expensive and it's the lowest point, it's the lowest utility or the deepest utility in the road. So that's the one that needs to be done first. And it's also the one that's causing us the most problems in terms of, compliance with DEP, extra costs at the wastewater treatment facility, extra water that's going through the facility that we have to treat, just generates a huge amount of costs. So, and it's reducing our capacity to be able, what we can take for expansion in Rockport or other, places. So normally on the dry points of the year, we don't have a capacity issue at the treatment plant. It's when it rains. And if we can kind of eliminate this issue of water getting into the sewer system, we have like, all the capacity we'd ever need. But in order to do that, we got to take care of these issues first. So we're going to take care of the sewer, and then after we take care of the sewer, if there's stormwater needs, we'll take care of those, and then move, and then the water company will hopefully we'll have buy-in from them. They'll put the water line in, and then once all that's done, then you're really looking at the surface, and then you're looking at the sidewalk, the road, and then um, either shoulder or bike lanes or whatever other multimodal needs we're looking at. Does that kind of explain it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
So Dave, we've
Mhm.
got a bunch of things on our agenda still. Just want to make sure that we've covered this piece.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions,
No, I
insights?
mean, no, I mean, if you have any questions, let me know. I mean, that's probably a lot of stuff I just threw at you there, but I guess the biggest thing to think about is that, um, whenever I look at a road, I'm looking at all of the aspects of the road, from the standpoint of a complete street. And like I said, we're doing a sewer line on Molyneux Road right now, and I'm saying now's the time that we should be looking at it to determine if, we can widen the shoulder or what we can do there. And I'm gonna do that for every project I do.
That's great.
Okay,
Thank you.
Anita,
Yeah. Dave, I'm desperately trying to keep up with this rapid fire explanation of
Okay.
everything you're doing.
You can
We
talk to me later, Anita. It's no
we
problem.
can catch the video, but I have a question.
Yeah.
The first thing you mentioned after going out to bid on John Street sidewalk is I wrote down Conway scheduled to go out to bid October 30th, 2026. Did I get that
Yes.
right?
Let me see here.
Should be 2025.
No, it's 10/30/26.
That's Conway Road?
No,
Uh,
John's,
John Street, actually, John Street, that's completion of John Street.
Oh, that's completion. Okay.
E-
10,
Estimated completion. So we're planning on going out to bid on, let me see here, John Street in around the January timeframe of 26.
So I think the reason she was confused is you commented something about the path that goes from John Street to.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're kind of still in the design phase of all of this.
Yeah.
And there was some talk about, well, on the south side of the road, as you get closer to Subway, it gets really narrow there. And we're gonna try and put shoulder all the way through there, um, as a separate part of the job. But if we could connect to a path that kind of goes down to Conway Road, which is what people are trying to do, they're trying to get to Hannaford, and I think it's Hannaford where they're trying to go. Um, you make a path there because people are using that for a reason. You don't go all the way to the intersection of Route 1 and take a right and go down the road there when you don't have to. If you don't have to do that, just kind of tie it in through the trail and bring it to Conway Road, and then bring, tie in further down. I think that's the objective. We've already have an established trail there. It's worth trying to kind of tie that into this side of the road.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Before we move on, Margot, and I recognize that. Dave, just to summarize at the end of this, so there's a huge punch list, really well organized and really exciting to hear all aspects about it. Is the thing that the Pathways Committee can do just to stay out of your hair? Do we show up when you're doing budget presentations? Do we write articles? What do we
yeah.
do?
So I gave you a long list of things that I'm working on, right?
Yes, got them.
And every time one of these things comes up, we need support, and the select board needs support so that you know, they hear that this is important and they hear that it's worth spending the extra money to not just fix a sewer, but fix everything on top. Because everything on top costs money too. And,
So do we come to those select board meetings? Is that the idea?
yeah, so, you know, like, I'll do a presentation about an up and coming project. And then it's always good for the Pathways to committee to come in and explain the value of that and explain how the public needs that and wants that and how this ties into the Pathways goal of connecting things and creating destinations. And like, and then like for in the case, Jeff, what you did over there with the Conway Road trail, that was really helpful. I honestly, I meant to do that. I just didn't have time to do that. And that's a good, you know, example of how picking up those little pieces, and finding the details that kind of lend themselves to kind of establishing an extra segment of that trail or path or sidewalk is helpful. Um,
You mean the
and
thing that drew out where the paths are?
yeah, you know, I
I
mean,
thought that was
and then the work with, you know, any of the rock road work and any of the work that we try to do, you know, going to the high school. I mean, all of those little things, like we're gonna sit down at the meeting and we're gonna say, okay, what's this project look like? All right, we gotta interact with CMP, we gotta interact with the attorney, we gotta interact with Mary Springs, you know, all of those things are gonna be helpful. And I think that we'll identify those things where we need your help. And that's where I think the biggest bang for the buck comes from with the Pathways Committee, because I think you were working under the premise before of nobody was really trying to do this internally at at the town, right? So you guys were kind of carrying the torch alone. And I mean, I'm coming from a totally different world where everything I look at is a complete street view. I think
Right.
probably prior to me, there was none of that. So, you know, it's like, it's just a big shift in kind of the, you know, the mentality of how things need to happen. So your need, or probably your role, was different back then. I mean, it's almost easier for me to kind of to be the one point of contact to kind of funnel all this information to DOT and the town. But then we need your like external support, and then probably support in the historic things and details of established trails and things that have happened and all of that. That's where I think the value is in the Pathways right now. And then maybe identifying future projects or, you know, other things that were not on this list that I'm talking about. I think that's where the Pathways can help. Um,
Thank you. Thank you,
So
Dave.
this is a good, maybe what we should do is jump down to number 5, because, you know, Dave, you talk about complete streets, but the reality is you leave. Is that necessarily well institutionalized into Camden's culture? And so Rockport, we've drafted a complete streets policy to kind of push sort of the bigger vision of complete streets being adopted as that goes beyond one person, but gets adopted by the whole town.
Before we get into that, I have one more interjected.
But that'd be good to hear from Dave on that.
I know, we will. It's somebody's birthday today.
You know?
It is Andrew's birthday. I brought something. So we need to sing happy birthday, and I'll do this while we're talking, okay?
Dave needs to hurry over here to have some.
But didn't we talk to try to take advantage of Dave's time?
Yeah, yeah.
no, don't worry about it. You're fine.
I wanted this complete streets thing to be talked about, and now you.
It's their complete streets. It's theirs.
So
So do you
Wait,
guys,
happy birthday.
whose birthday is it?
Happy birthday to you.
But that was awful.
Yeah, that was-
Yeah, it came together.
That was the best I've gotten all day.
All right, keep going. That was a really good question from Margo.
I think, so Jeff did a great job trying to sell the complete streets policy to Camden, right? And I don't think it panned out, right? But
Not yet.
Rockport,
Not
but
yet,
no,
we're not done.
right, right. But so you're telling me Rockport complete street policy went through?
No, we have a draft, and so we're gonna discuss that right now. It is both our draft and sort of the process of getting it adopted.
You don't care.
But
So-
would there be things that are helpful to you? I think you mentioned you've done this before and that there might be things that we could put in a policy that would be helpful to you guys.
I always think it's best to mirror the state's complete street policy. Because it allows for overlap between the state roads and the town roads, and that's a good starting place. Honestly, I think it all boils down to, leadership, and you can have all the policies you want on the books. If you don't have leadership that's going to support it, it isn't going to happen. So, this is where the Pathways Committee comes into play, I think, is when you see like shifting and changing and public works directors, town managers. These are the kind of things that you need to make or highlight as priorities and concerns for the town. And having the policy in the background as a drop, as a something in the background to fall back on is always good. But policies are policies, right? They're not going to be implemented if you don't have leadership to kind of execute them. And I think that's where it starts. So to me, a complete street policy is just a piece of paper, unless it has the leadership and the experience to implement it. So I guess that's my take on it.
Let's discuss where we're at, because, Camden and Rockport are different beasts in terms of how things happen.
Mhm.
And so we took our complete streets policy from originally the bigger, broader, and my brain is not there. Freeport, Yarmouth, but we also looked at the guidelines of the organization that
The National or
Complete street.
the Complete Streets Organization. So this is, it models very much Yarmouth and Freeport came out of the state's models or the
Mhm.
state's blueprint. And so I guess really the question is the people, they were sent in the minutes or in the email that Linda sent. The question really is to Orion, how has it been received? Without,
Yeah, so I sent it up to my boss to review, I sent it, polished it over to the little political dip in the toe. A little pool to see if the select board might be palatable towards it. I haven't heard back yet. He's been busy with that, so that's the update.
But
Nothing right now.
I understand your point, Dave, about, you need leadership and all, but once you have something in the culture, like Margot says, it takes hold, right? It's there. And so that's why we have policies to begin with. So
Yeah, but you're the culture, right? You're the driver of the culture. You're the group of people that have the interest in this, because you're taking time out of the day to be part of this meeting. So if you're not actively pushing for this with the select boards, they're not going to prioritize it because they have 101 things that are priorities, right? And the people that are kind of getting involved and making justifying these things that they need aren't like communicating these and making themselves three-dimensional objects at meetings. They're not going to happen. Okay. A policy to me, I'm not, I mean, I know there's some people that are all about, policies and paperwork and all that, but you need the people that are believe in it, and you need the people that are in leaderships to understand that the people believe in it think it's important, so they think it's important. I think that's where it needs to happen, and that's where I think that's where the Pathways Committee has the biggest
Policy
impact.
To teach your leadership what needs to happen.
I agree. I'm not saying you don't need a policy, but I'm saying I'm emphasizing that a policy is just a piece of paper if you don't have you folks, talking about it and telling them how important it is. Because it's not an ordinance, it's a policy.
Correct.
There's nothing that triggers the select board to read any of these policies when we're talking about things. What happens is the emails that got received that day, maybe
Exactly.
the derogatory comment that somebody saw on Facebook that spooked them. And
Right.
then, the two people that show up at the meeting because they got a letter in the mail, we don't have time usually to go out and just ask general stuff. It's all issue based. And so figuring out ways to just get that conversation back to the larger community interest requires people being willing to be the squeaky wheel, and
So you gotta go out and get people to write.
you gotta comment on Facebook, and you gotta, no, it's not, well, yeah, that helps too. Letters to the select board.
The select board actually looks at Facebook to see how people feel.
It's
That's
not
what
on
you're saying.
purpose. It's, nobody wants to do this, okay? But it does happen. If I go to Stop and Go, for instance, and somebody says something to me, that makes a difference. Like, that's where it's happening a lot of the time. It's not in, then you get a little bit in the meeting, but it actually makes more of a difference usually to write a letter to the editor than to just the select board. Anyway, because the select board is afraid a lot of the time. I mean, it's,
So if we
So,
wanna get select.
we wanna
board
demonstrate that
listen to
people-
us, we have to
Yeah,
write
you
a
have
letter
to
to the
get-
editor.
you have to get the community to listen
We
to
have
you.
to find you in the grocery store. We can't write you a letter.
You can write me a letter. I'm just saying that the select board is trying to figure out what the community wants most of the time. You want to feel like you're basically doing what the community is supportive of. And you're looking for ways to see that. And so when somebody just sends, me one email and I get to be like, well, I've gotten a lot of emails that say this, it actually doesn't go as far as somebody who's willing to write a letter to the editor and try to convince their peers. So if you can help convince the community that something matters,
But how do you
Rather
know
than
the
telling-
community is convinced? How do you know they read the letter, they agree with the
don't,
letter,
it's a-
and they're convinced? How do you know that?
Wait, I'd like to bring it
It's a
back. I'd like to bring it back to the
We're all-
policy.
We're all gauging.
Hang on a second.
Okay.
I'd like to bring it back to the discussion of the policy. Is it, Allison, you can respond to this. Is it not worth trying to get a policy adopted by the town? Is it not worth the time? It's better to spend the effort
No,
on
I don't.
Facebook.
I don't think that. Andrew, are you there? Andrew.
Yeah.
So
The
Andrew,
birthday-
you
are
you remember
talking about the birthday boy?
Andrew? Yeah, it's a birthday boy. Andrew, you remember about 7 years ago, you called me up when I was in Rockland and you said, Dave, how did you get all this stuff done in Rockland? You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you the recipe. So what happened was there was a group called Renew Rockland. Okay. And they were a group of younger people, kind of probably, in their 30s. And they believed in complete streets. They believed in walkability. They believed in a lot of different, changes that Rockland needed to go through. And Rockland was kind of going through a transition at that point where that wasn't really that important. And they were trying to make it important. So what they did was they did a series of like gatherings and meetings internally about people like-minded like themselves. And then they knew the recipe. The recipe was, let's get people together that have common interest of these goals, and then let's let our leadership know. And what they did was they went to the select board meetings or the council meetings, and they would go to public comment and they'd say, we want a complete streets policy. And they would send 3 people to each select board meeting in rotation, and they would do it for a whole year. And by the end of that whole time, everybody knew it was super important about complete streets and sidewalks and walkability. And if you look at the evolution of where Rockland was and where they're at now, that is a direct result of what they did. And that's what you do. That is the recipe. And if you don't do that, it's not gonna go as quickly, and it's not gonna go as easily. The people sitting in the chair that are on the select board, on the council, are reactive to the people that are showing up and putting the issues in front of them. And if they think it's a lot of people, and these people are organized and they're showing up, over and over again through months of meetings, I can guarantee you that that is going to happen. That's just the recipe. So however you want to do it, I just let you know the secret,
So
but
depressing, Dave.
that's what it is.
Yeah, okay. All
That's
right.
what it is, and I mean, and everybody,
Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what it's about. That's what community involvement is about. That's what advocating for the things that you really feel are important are about. And if you don't do that, you're not going to get what you want. That's what it boils down to, because there's only so many resources and a lot of people competing for them.
And you gotta be logical. It does help to be logical and,
Oh, well, I
Yeah.
mean, it has to be reasonable. I mean,
Yeah.
that goes without saying. Yeah. But
but letters to the editor good too. I mean, it's true. And sometimes that's just reminding the select board that there is a policy sometimes. So I mean, what do you think? Is there value in just having a policy on the books?
I absolutely think there's value about having a policy on the books, because then it ties into what I just said. Then the people can get up and say, hey, look, we have this complete streets policy, and you just built a road that is, 35 feet wide, and there's no bike lanes on it. I mean, what happened here? And that's where you can point to. We've adopted this policy, and this is important to the town, and we really want these things to happen and be incorporated into our planning projects. That's where you could be an advocate for what you want. That's what I think the Pathways Committee's biggest function can be, to kind of promote things that they want with either Rockport Select Board or the Camden Select Board. There's nothing wrong with this. This isn't a bad thing. This is just about knowing how the system works, knowing how people are receptive to these things, and knowing how, it's gonna get traction. And if you don't do that, it's not going to happen, because it's too easy to say, oh, we'll do it next time. We've got other things going on. We've got these people screaming about seagulls. It's like, it's whatever the thing is at that point in time. I've been doing this for, 20 years now, and I've seen it happen. And that's what's effective. It's not just making a policy and letting it sit on the shelf and not talking about it.
All right.
So we're agreed there. But Rockport has a draft, and I guess the question is whether there's any, for those who've had a chance to look at it,
I have.
whether there are thoughts and, additions, deletions, edits,
Do we all have that somewhere?
It was mailed out with the agenda.
Okay.
I do have some general comments, that it'd be great. I think it was great. I actually like a lot of elements of it better than the one I wrote.
That was a good thing we didn't adopt it then.
Good thing, yeah. I have two general areas. One is the vision, I think needs to be strengthened. The vision is just about creating a picture in people's head of where you want the town to be. It's not about process, it's not about doing this. So I suggested something, and I'll email it to you, okay? It just, you want an inspiring, short vision of a town that is living in a complete streets world, and it makes it great. People are happy and singing and whistling. And the economy is thriving.
Is that what's in the Camden one?
Yeah, something like that. But my biggest question is things, the accountability, and whether you have run this past the town office or not. and whether you've gotten buy-in. For instance, monthly, the town planner, in conjunction with the chief of police, shall provide the Pathways Committee a summary of written complaints, concerns, recommendations, requests
Oof.
related to the matters of complete streets. That's one of them. Another one is, the select board gets a report of meeting and work group participation by the committee. That means a report of attendance. And, a lot of detail here.
To answer your question, we're waiting on John, the town manager, to provide that feedback.
But
Oh,
we
okay,
also
okay.
had the conversation with Orion
Yeah.
about those reports and
Everything on my side, I'm fine with.
Awesome, awesome.
which,
Because that's
Everyone
the,
else.
that's where the rubber hits the road, is that you gotta monitor, you gotta measure.
I mean, and maybe that, different towns do have different, like, something that might be helpful somewhere isn't necessarily helpful
And
everywhere, right?
And the other one is did the, I don't know if it's you, Ryan, or the code enforcement officer to revise existing regulatory documents? So that they're consistent with complete streets policies?
Well, that's
that
not
would-
stated in here.
Hmm?
That's not stated.
Yeah, it says review and revise existing regulatory documents for the complete streets possibly affected. The requirements of this possible must be reflected within the town's regulatory documents, wherever there is an interface.
yeah, to
The
go.
town manager, at the discretion of the select board, shall coordinate initial regulatory review and development process for additional review, blah, 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 blah. So it's awesome. It's just what needs to happen. It's an enormous amount of work to go through all the codes to make that happen.
Yeah, it's no small feat, that's for sure.
So, yeah, that, I was just wondering, it's cool, it's great.
Well, I mean, and I'll speak, in meeting with them and talking about it, but Mike's good, our public works director, but complete streets is not forefront in his mind like Dave's. So in thinking, and one of the questions that Margot presented to Dave is like, so you don't have a complete streets policy, this is what you do, Dave, but if you go away, new person comes in, how does Camden keep that ball moving?
Bingo,
So
exactly.
coming up with something that kind of kept the ball moving internally, regardless, it's a structure. I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if the town manager will be happy with it. I'm not sure. So
Okay,
But we're gonna find out.
we're gonna find out.
that,
I mean,
if-
what,
if-
at least you could do is like require that to be a requirement of the job.
Yep.
You know,
that would be really cool. If you guys get it passed, that, if John says we're behind it, man, that would really, we'd add that. I don't have it in, I didn't put it into the policy that we proposed. We were waiting to see if the select board wanted to add that or not.
But Michael's gonna make sure that.
It's all in my hands.
What's the requirement of the job?
They'll add those reporting issues into the.
I mean, I just don't want to have that. I wouldn't think that's gonna fly very well in Camden, but,
Allison's having a heart attack.
Yeah,
I mean, but it's,
so I can send my edits.
Yeah,
Um,
that'd be
there's
great.
not that many. I really liked it. I really liked the definitions section. That was really cool too. That's it.
That's because we have lots of people who have no background that you need to. And that's what both report in, the state model. You know, we were just following those, and I think we added one that. Can't remember.
Well, I think we paid attention to the soul of the town too, which is really important, like Rockport being agricultural, maritime. I think we've tried to get that language, sort of just to make it more personable.
It's
More
good.
personal.
It is. It feels more
To
down to earth,
Rockport.
not so.
And to bring in the land trusts especially.
Hmm.
Like with Camden, it would bring in the Camden Hill State Park, I would think,
Mhm.
connector wise.
where do you want this document to live? Like, just a policy, or you want it to be an ordinance, or?
Well,
Where-
Policy.
It's a policy and then it goes into the ordinances, like a little.
That was the part I was talking about, that they're gonna work them into the ordinances and the code enforcement officer.
So it's like a policy that's sort of like a
Drives it.
directive to town staff to,
Yeah,
To incorporate where appropriate,
are you, yeah.
yeah.
You,
that's
you
it.
know, Rockport's a
Yeah.
little different in a lot of ways because of the, like it is more rural and there is more back roads. So, I mean, one of the places you could put that is in kind of your road specs and the width of your road and requiring a shoulder. Because I mean, just that alone with those kinds of streets would be helpful. Um, so that's another place that, you could talk about that. I don't know where Rockport's road construction, criteria is, but when you talk about the road construction, wherever that sits in the ordinance, there could be something that says, the travel lane needs to be X amount of feet wide and the shoulder needs to be X amount of feet wide. And then that would, help Mike with, I mean, I think Mike does a good job. I think that would help Mike with, planning for that kind of thing. Cause I don't think it's, I think what ends up happening is, we're used to putting the road exactly back to the way it is. And so he looks at paving that road. And then when you're talking about adding on a shoulder, it's like an added cost. And it's hard for him to kind of, justify that sometimes. But if that's actually a standard in the policy, it would make it easier because it's just something he has to do. It isn't like an option. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but that might be another way to kind of help with that.
I believe a lot of this came up because of the repaving of Main Street to Simonton Corner. It looked like they're gonna put a highway through because they cut trees back 20 feet on either side. But the road ended up being the same width. Is that one of your favorites?
even higher, right?
Just,
Yeah.
yeah, of course.
But again, I
Yep.
mean, Mike is trying to do his job and work within his budget. And he's looking at that road as being, you know, 22 feet wide, right? So he's saying, okay, I have to pave the road 22 feet and he budgets that. But if he knows that the standard is, all right, any road I work on moving forward needs to be 24 feet wide and I got to put, an extra shoulder on the side of it, he'll do that. Mike doesn't have a problem with that. But I think it would be helpful for him to have that.
Side alley is really
Oh.
terrible.
Dave, if you can hear us, we lost you.
Oh,
just texted
yeah.
him.
I mean, I don't know if you can you hear me?
Scott, if anybody's got any feedback on our complete, Rockport's complete streets policy, make sure you get that to us. Want to make sure we've got a couple of items that we are not going to get to today. Unless there's any last moments of last word that anybody has, either regarding bike pedestrian awareness, committee reports from the annual, we probably should mention we need to get, a statement, little blurb that will go into the annual reports from Camden and Rockport. So I guess the question is anybody willing to step up?
I'll do it.
Jeff will do it for,
I've been doing it forever.
Yeah, but I think
For Camden,
Pictures, we need pictures, yeah.
we'll do her.
okay. So Jeff, you'll do Camden,
sure.
and then,
But you know what? Let me get a picture while I'm right here.
You think about
I was thinking like,
projects.
yeah, because nobody knows what we're talking about a lot of the time, and,
Yeah, but let's get a picture of
but this
actually
would,
the
this
pathway
is great
committee.
too, yeah.
turn around.
Yeah, I think that's a great.
Shouldn't you be in the picture?
Yeah, what about you?
No, you didn't see it.
Why don't we use like technology?
Linda's a
to do this?
reporter, she's never in the picture.
Look, everybody.
No, Linda, sure.
Just be part of the picture.
That's for the town report.
Getting
Smile.
closer. I think it's done, it's okay.
Linda,
Hey, Jeff, did you just turn around?
Yep.
Nice. That's
Right?
well, now we'll take a picture with you sitting there and then we can Photoshop you in.
Because I'll do that.
Because
I think we're all-
Why do you want to, do you not want to be in the picture?
No, it doesn't.
There you go.
It
There you
does
go.
matter. For the same reason you can get matters to picture.
There, you got it?
Oh, look, right.
Oh, look, wait.
Oh.
Right.
I got everybody. Smile. 3, 2, 1.
It's just your eyes, dude.
That's okay.
You could tell they were smiling. Yeah, that's what.
There you go. Two things. that you-
Who's gonna do it from Rockport?
You and I will talk about our report.
Yeah, a little bit.
It would really be so much better if it were joint.
Jeff?
That was the kind of.
And next meeting. Oh, does anybody want to say anything quickly about bicycle pedestrian
I
awareness?
can, I can.
I
I
was
can,
gonna, go ahead.
yeah. That was gold, what Dave was talking about, and I caught it here about things that we could do as a committee to help him in his process. And so, look at it in the minutes. I've got it down. Things like watching the select board meetings for when Mike or Dave are presenting projects and be there to add our voice. Same in the budget committee. And in my mind, I'm also thinking that doing occasional articles about issues related to bicycles and pedestrians, and not in negative ways, but all positive ways, not griping, but saying, hey, this is the way life could be, like that. So that, I was pushing Dave, that's why I asked him that question, what could we do? So please, Lindsay.
Oh, yeah, I know we don't have a lot of time, but is one idea, I think one way to create awareness is to get more people biking. And thinking it would be great if we had a Rockport to Camden bike night. I know a lot of cities do weekly, like road shutdowns and things like that, but if we could do like one this summer, then maybe it becomes a monthly thing and go from there.
That'd be fun.
Harbor to place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
Totally.
Yeah, all kinds of bikes, right? All
Yeah.
kinds of bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, when do you want to do it? You be in charge. That's your meeting.
On it. On it.
Okay. Next meeting.
Okay. Next meeting? February, March.
April.
April 16th.
No, you'll get announcements. It's the third Thursday of April.
That's a great idea with when I lived in Columbia, they did this.
Amazing. I've never.
Did you live in Columbia?
I've gone a few times.
What was it,
Do
Lindsay?
it like multiple days a week. Like
Yeah,
they
like
shut
people,
down.
yeah.
Yeah, they shut down like 70 miles of the city, like the highway.
And everybody
shut
puts
down.
out on their bike.
Everyone's biking.
I read about
running.
this, I get it. That will be fun.
Yeah,
Lindsay,
even
we
like
can
in
do it.
Boston, they do like, they shut down Memorial.
Could we cut down Park Street, from Rockport to Camden? Park Street to make sure. Go down into.
Ooh.
What I would like to shut down. That's my.
Lindsay,
Right now.
I have a motion to adjourn.
My cousin.
so moved.
Thank you.
Like that.
We're gonna.
Is anybody please take one of these home?